FM 94, The Dark. It is that time again, time to get to know a band. We play here on The Dark. And on the phone right now, I'm talking with the lead singer of the band, Adelitas Way, that being Rick. And Rick, first of all, it sounds like you're calling from Las Vegas. Am I correct on that?
Oh, yeah, the beautiful Las Vegas.
How's the weather in Las Vegas?
That's amazing. It's amazing paradise, man. You know, sometimes it gets a little hot, but, you know, everything is so convenient here that you don't really notice the heat that much unless you go for a run. But most people don't run in the middle of the day. You know, you either wait till nighttime to do your jogging or you do it early in the morning.
And I hear you're doing a little babysitting too right now. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, man. I got a 2-year-old girl and a 6-week-old girl. So it's amazing. It's beautiful. What's
it like being a rock artist with kids?
You know, for me, you know, when I first started the band, and I don't mean this in any way towards the music business. When I first started the band, my only main obsession was, you know, accomplishing my goals. You know, touring, playing, you know, being in a band, making, you know, doing everything music. You know, and then after you have your first child, your priorities kind of shift in a sense of where you're hungrier than ever to have that success, but it's for someone else at this point. It's for, you know, for me, you know, I love to play, obviously. I love to write songs. I love to make records, but there's also another driving force behind it all now with my kids. You know, I want to make sure that that I can, you know, put money away for them and they can live great lives. And, you know, in today's music business, that seems to be harder than ever with, you know, with how things are panning out for artists. But, you know, we have a great following on the road. You know, we do really well at our shows, and, you know, that's the one place that no one can take away from us.
Absolutely. And you mentioned you have 2 girls. I have 3 daughters, so I know exactly what it's like to raise daughters.
Well, you're scaring me because I'm going to go for one more shooting for the boy, and and 3 daughters is probably going to happen to me. So I'm going to be following in your footsteps.
Well, the one thing, and the first time we had kids, we had twins. So I have twin daughters that are almost 11 now. Okay.
Wow.
And then a 9-year-old daughter too. So basically, what I was going to say though is enjoy those moments when they are young, because even for me, 10, 11 years later, I can't believe it's already passed that far.
Everyone tells me that, and I really try to appreciate every moment with them. I spend a lot of time with them, and honestly, I've also slowed down my touring due to that reason. You know, I want to be in their lives. I want to be there for them, and you know, I think at some point, and this is just, you know, the truth, I think at some point in the coming years, not right now, I still have goals set in my mind of what I have to do. At some point, I'm going to have to do a priority check and make sure that I'm more involved in their lives. You know, the older they get, you know, and I hope that by that point we're at the point where, you know, we could do a headlining tour of the U.S. and the world, and you know, that'll be like the big, you know when bands like Alice in Chains or Nickelback or some of these bands come out, man, they do one big full U.S. tour, and then they get to go home and be with their families. And you know, for me, I'm really hoping that in the next 3 or 4 years, our business in the headlining world is good enough to where I can do those things. And we're getting close, man. You know, we're not, obviously not to the level Nickelback and Alice in Chains are, but, you know, we're very close to filling most small clubs and House of Blues and all that stuff, you know, at this point in our career.
Absolutely. Hey, let's talk about the band Adelitas Way. How did Adelitas Way all come about? What's the history of it?
It started with me, man. You know, I just, you know, I didn't even know what the music business was. I remember, you know, I moved to Las Vegas, and I was kind of going through a rough patch, and I was just, you know, laying on my floor in my apartment that had no furniture because I could barely afford it, and I just started singing, you know, a melody about a song I wrote about my brother who's addicted to heroin, and I kind of wrote like a poem about it, but a song, you know, it was very emotional. And that was the first song I ever wrote, and I sang the song with no music and no melody. And then over the years, I learned, you know, the very basics of guitar, and you know, I also would always, you know, find someone, you know, to jam with, just to sing on my melodies, and that's how the whole thing started with just, you know, emotions, man. And then I met my drummer Trevor, who's he's been my drummer for the past 7 years, and you know, me and him kind of took this thing and ran with it.
Very cool, very cool. We're talking with Rick, lead singer of the band Adelitas Way, and that leads right into my next question, Rick. Is the name Adelitas Way. How did that name come about?
It's a whorehouse in Tijuana.
That's the truth.
That is the truth. It's a whorehouse in Tijuana. I got arrested in Tijuana when I was 19. And I went into a bar called Adelitas, and the whole experience was kind of nuts, man. And when I left Tijuana, I appreciated my position in the United States a little more. I was living in my car at that point, trying to figure my way. And you feel bad for yourself sometimes when you're going through tough times. But after my trip to Tijuana, man, I saw girls my age. They were prostitutes. I saw people living in houses that looked like forts I built when I was a kid. You can't drink the water there because it's not clean.
Right.
So I went with a new perspective. And when I went into this Tijuana whorehouse, I didn't know it was a whorehouse at the time, but I went in there because I was frazzled after getting arrested by the policia. Just being around that atmosphere made me, come back over to the States and just really take a more of an appreciation to everything I have in life.
Very cool, very cool. How about the upbringing that you had, and maybe the influence of music? What were some of the influences for music that you had when you were younger?
Man, I was influenced by a lot of classic rock and then a lot of grunge rock. For me, I sat in my room playing video games when I was 12, 13 years old to Nirvana and, Stone Temple Pilots and Soundgarden and Metallica and Guns N' Roses. And my parents were always blasting the Police in our house and Marvin Gaye and the Beatles and Zeppelin and the Who. So I got a good little history of music, growing up. But, I'm a grunge kid at heart. I love that whole 90s movement that came through. But I don't want to give, lack of credit to the 80s and 70s, man. The bands like Metallica and Foreigner and Def Leppard, I listen to a little bit of everything. I'm very well-rounded in music. And it's funny, my upbringing, I think, gets me in trouble in the music business, I think, because I'm an East Coaster and I speak my mind a lot. And, lately I've been taking a lot of flack for being truthful about a lot of situations going on in the music business today. And I think people in our business don't like the truth being out there. They want people to think that the musicians are millionaires. They want people to think that artists are peachy to each other. They want people to think that, there's no conflict. But, sometimes I go on to interviews and I speak the truth about record labels and about just my experience in this business sometimes. And I think my East Coast upbringing gets me in a lot of trouble in the business because I'm very, very forward about everything.
I love it. Let's talk about that, too. I talked with Adrian from Otherwise about this yesterday. I want to talk about this, too, since you are definitely very vocal about this, the music industry as a whole. And I want to focus more on radio because I know for myself, we're a small market station that can basically do whatever we want. My boss has given us that opportunity. But when you get into the bigger markets, the corporate guys basically tell you what you can play. What do you think about that?
I think that they're killing rock music. And, what was Adrian's take on it? Was he upset about it as well? Because I feel like I'm the only one out there that's speaking up about this kind of stuff.
He was completely upset about it, too. He thinks that
they expect bands to come in and spend $50,000, $60,000 on radio campaigns to chart at 15 or 20 on the charts, and then you have guys who are running the Cumulus and the Clear channels that just will not play any new rock and any rock at all. They want to follow what's going on at the alternative stations. But those bands at the alternative stations, the Imagine Dragons, the Milky Chances, they already have 5 radio stations playing their music. So it's like, what's another one? And I think active rock is losing its identity and it's losing its core artists. For me, do I want to go back to active rock with another single after what I'm seeing going on and how they're treating I had 2 number 1 hits at Active Rock. I had 8 top 5 singles.
Right.
When I came back to the game after having a baby and doing everything, there was a new regime at Cumulus. There's new regimes all over the place. And I think that they're killing rock and roll, man. Less bands are going to be touring through markets with the markets not supporting the rock bands. I think there's going to be less artists picking, and there's, quite frankly, going to be less artists willing to put the time and effort and money into going to the active rock format. So I think the active rock format is going to start losing money that it had coming through it, because when you have a band like us, we draw 300 to 600 people in every single market in the United States, and there's a lot of places now that we won't go or we'll skip because we're not getting proper radio support or proper show support from these Cumulus stations and these stations who aren't allowed to play music. And I think it takes away the excitement, man. When I first came into this business in 2007, the possibilities were endless. When you had a hit song, people played it off the fact they thought it was a hit, or they listened to the music. Nowadays, when you release a single, you automatically know that Cumulus is not going to play it. If you're a band like me, if you're a band, there's certain bands that are sound, Cumulus just will not play it. You know what I mean? And the possibilities don't seem endless anymore. Everything seems so predictable and stale, and it almost seems like Active Rock's trying to adopt a bunch of artists that aren't theirs at this point. It's like, is Imagine Dragons really going to come and play a rock fest for a Cumulus station? No, dude. They're going to have to call upon the older bands that have been around for 20 years, the Seethers or the Papa Roaches, or they're not going to get any new talent because they're playing, 2 new bands out of the 100 that are on the chart,
Right. I completely agree with you on that. And that's the one thing about our program here. We play music 2000 till today, and we play a lot of the new bands because this is their platform to get out there so they can be heard. Because if you're not heard...
no platforms for new bands anymore. And
no.
Then all these labels and these indie labels are trying to go off sales, like, iTunes and this and the other thing. It's like, first of all, we have no platform to be heard anymore. Second of all, no one buys music anymore. I know that sucks to say, but they don't. They go on...
Right.
Spotify, they go into YouTube, they go on all these streaming places, and it's tough for the labels to adapt because they're not making the money they once were, but the bands are doing fine. Like when people go to Spotify and stream our music, I don't mind as long as they're willing to come out to a show, or they're willing to buy a T-shirt. For me, I never seen anything off physical CD sales, and I never seen anything off the iTunes sales anyway. Now I do for the first time in my career because I own all my rights. I own all my music, and I made sure I saw the shift in the business, and when I saw that shift, I was like, I have to own my own music if I'm ever going to make any money for my children and for myself. So I think for bands that don't own their music, what is go look at the SoundScan charts, man. Go look at the sales. Nothing sells anymore. Even the biggest artists on Sony. I think the new Foo Fighters single sells 800 singles a week. That's the biggest rock band in the world. What are you going to do? What does that say for the future of the younger bands who not only now stations like you guys are the ones keeping the new artists afloat because you got these, I don't want to use the word I'm going to use, but you got these clowns over at Cumulus who are alienating an entire group of rock bands who are out there with the passion. They're working hard. They're traveling in vans and buses, and they're playing in front of small clubs to gain fan base every night. And it's like those bands are never going to have a shot if every record that comes through the door of Cumulus just automatically stamps a no on.
So the question, I guess, for you, Rick, is how do we change this?
I think we got to just wait until this guy gets fired. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's a certain guy that's behind the rockternative idea, and I don't think it's working very well. And I think that it might take 2 years, it might take 3 years, but his big grand plan is not. I don't think it's going exactly how he was hoping it was going to go, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I think at the end of the day, if it keeps going exactly like it is right now, Adelitas Way, I'm not going to put another record out. I'm going to go and enjoy my family, and you know what I mean? And you're going to see a lot of bands making that decision. Look at Framing Hanley just broke up.
Yep.
New Medicine is breaking up. Like, you have all these bands who have accomplished so much in the music business, and it's the Cumuluses and the guys who are alienating these young bands that are trying to make their way, and the Adelitas Ways and the Otherwises. Otherwise, look at those guys. Those guys are road warriors. They work really hard, and they can't get a single past the top 10. Right. And it's because of exactly what we're talking about. And after that happening 5 times, how much longer do you think it's going to take till those guys just see, this is how it is, and they get frustrated,
It is, and it has to be. And on my side, it's frustrating to see great, talented musicians like yourself and all these new up-and-coming bands that don't get a shot to ever be heard. How are they ever going to become the next big thing? They're not.
It got even worse. When I first started, the rock bands were already boxed out of top 40. Before I started, you would see Linkin Park, 3 Days Grace, Breaking Benjamin. They were getting played on top 40 radio and alternative radio. When I came in, that started ending. The last band that I think was on top 40 radio that was a rock band was Shinedown in like 2011. I think Second Chance or If You Only Knew is the last song to cross over from our format and break. And that's a lot. That's 3 or 4 years without a massive hit. Then alternatives stopped playing all the rock bands, and now active rock won't even play the rock bands. So it's the worst I've ever seen it in my 10 years in the business. You know, when I first got in, active rock at least supported active rock. They were playing the new rock bands, they were playing the old rock bands. When you looked at the chart, there was no Congos or Milky Chance or Imagine Dragons on the active rock chart. They were on their own chart. Active rock was Papa Roach, Seether, Adelitas Way, Breaking Benjamin, right. Otherwise, you know, these, you know, 3 Days Grace. And now when you look at active rock, it's like Slipknot doesn't even get played on active rock anymore.
No.
You know? It's like Slipknot charts at 20 and falls off. It's like, you know, that's a disaster, man. And at the end of the day, you know, bands sacrifice. People don't realize this. We don't make much money because of the state of business. And we sacrifice everything we do because we love our fans. We love to play on stage. We love just what we do. You know, we do it for the love of things. But when you start feeling so disrespected by going out, driving 15 hours to cities, playing markets, and no one in the business that you're in is trying to support the business you're trying to support. Like, I'm a huge advocate for active rock, and I'm always speaking up for it. But when I look at active rock, like they're not doing anything for me, right? You know what I mean? They're not supporting me. They're not having my back. They're not showing me and Otherwise and Like a Storm and these new bands that are trying to dedicate our energy to showing them we care. They're not showing us back that they want us to be core artists. You know, they're abandoning us and leaving us. It's a one-sided relationship.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And, you know, you mentioned all those bands, and I've had a chance to talk to all those bands, and they all say the same thing. So you guys are united in one way. I think maybe you just eventually need to come together all as artists and go to those corporate guys and say, you need to do something different here.
Well, I have a bad reputation in the business because I'm very vocal about all this stuff, and I don't do things like you know, for me, the minute Cumulus stopped playing my records, I stopped doing things for Cumulus. You know, when they call me to say, hey, will you do our radio festival for this station that, you know, Cumulus, I say no. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? Because it's with them right now. It's a one-way street, man. It's hey, do everything we need, but we're not going to do anything for you. And what kind of relationship is that? You know what I mean? For me, I'm at a point in my career where I feel very accomplished with everything that I've done. I feel very, very grateful for all the opportunity I've had in music, and I feel like every record I make at this point is for our fans and for myself. And you know, I'm not gonna spend $50,000 to chart at 20 on active rock and get nothing in return. And at the end of the day, that's just how I feel. You know, and maybe I'm the stubborn one. Maybe I'm the one who's everyone looks at and says I'm crazy. But the business is very corrupt right now, man. These bands are hemorrhaging money. They're not getting anything in return. No big cities are playing the records, and it's doing nothing for them. It's people just pretty much taking their $50,000 and them getting almost nothing in return, but looking like something's happening.
I'm 100,000% behind you on that total statement. I totally agree with you, Rick, on that. We're talking with Rick from Adelitas Way, and let's get back to the band itself and the accomplishments that you have done. And boy, what an arsenal that you put out. And I think it all started back with that first song with Invincible. Would you be correct on that? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, Invincible was the first. Invincible, and look, we battled hills with Invincible. When we first released Invincible, you know, I felt like no one wanted to play it. But, you know, back in the day, like I said, there was magic in 2008, 2009 when a song reacted, or when fans reacted to a song, or when people were listening to a song and really sitting with it. You know, a hit was magical, man. A hit would be like, oh, it's a hit, I'm going to play it. That you don't hear that anymore. You don't hear, oh, it's a hit. You hear a million other things. You hear like, oh, you know, we're just not playing that kind of record, or we're not, you know, the majesticness is gone. The excitement of the music business used to be, if you wrote the right song, you had a hit. And it started with Invincible, man. We were on WWE, we were on CSI Miami, you know, the song, our first single went number 4 at Active Rock. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, following that, you know, we had 8 top 5 singles, you know, following that, 2 number 1 hits, and you know, Homeschool Valedictorian sold 1 million singles, and you know, it was. You know, we've had a great. You know, we've toured with some of the biggest bands in the world, man. We did an arena tour with Guns N' Roses, and you know, we did Carnival Madness with Godsmack and Shinedown and Papa Roach and Stained, and you know, and we're on the main stage with Stained. You know, playing right before Stained every night, and playing in front of 7,000 to 10,000 people a night, and you know, we got to do so many great things, man. And when I look back at at my music career, I feel very proud, and I feel bad for the artists who are coming out nowadays, because I feel like they're not getting to experience any of the things that I got to experience, man. I feel like they're not getting to play in front of 10,000 people a night. They're not getting to watch their song be number one at Active Rock, because it's just not possible anymore unless you're like a there's a group of kids who are looked at like as the cool kids in high school. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Yep.
Like our group of people, the otherwise is the Adelitas Ways, the Like a Storms. We're looked at as almost maybe like the old guys. I don't know what it is. But there's like a new group of new artists. There's the Pretty Reckless. There's Royal Blood. There's like 2 or 3 bands that is getting support from Active Rock. So it's not everyone, but I feel bad for all those other artists that aren't getting to feel a lot of the great accomplishments that our band got to feel, and even though they're great bands as well.
Well, and you mentioned some of those bands. Are they even getting the right attention for the right reason? You mentioned like the Pretty Reckless, and I'm obviously
Actress, 100%. We toured with them. It was the worst tour we ever did.
Exactly.
That's all I'm going to say about it. And I believe that she's talented, but their fan base and the excitement that's going on with them spawns from her celebrity.
Yeah.
And I think Active Rock jumped on that. That's Cumulus opened up the doors, because they were like, oh, we have someone who's already a star. We don't even have to make a star.
Right.
This girl's already a star. Let's just open the floodgates on someone who's already a star. Yeah, that's real difficult to do, right?
Yeah, and I've talked to other bands. I've even talked to other female-fronted bands that are lower on there, and they really are not big fans of the Pretty Reckless just because of that reason.
I can tell you, we toured with them for 75 dates, and I've toured with so many great acts, and it was the worst tour I ever did in my life.
Yeah.
And after that tour, I reevaluated where my career was, because I felt like I shouldn't be opening up for bands like that. And for me, I know they got a big fan base. I don't want to dog them. I've dogged them already so bad that I got in trouble for it. But bottom line, truthful between me and you, hands down the worst tour I ever did.
Yeah, I could see that. I have seen you guys in concert, and you were talking about the Carnival of Madness. You came to Minnesota at the State Fair, played there on August 30th, and I was one of the many people out there in the stands. You put on one hell of a show, and you do put on a great show. What do you like playing live at your shows? What songs really make you come alive?
I think that you always got to play your hits, man. I think that excites me, because the crowd's energy picks up so much when you play the songs that they know. And I love playing Criticize. One of my favorite songs to do live is a song off our latest release before the EP, a song called Stuck, which I feel is very emotional, and it's one of my favorite ones to sing. But, I love playing the high-energy songs, and I love playing the Criticizes and the Invincibles and the Six. And for me, it's always good to relax and sing songs like Alive and sing songs like Last Stand, but the band always wants to rock. So maybe one day I'm gonna have to do like an acoustic tour where I play some of the favorites, because we get a lot of people who are like, why didn't you play Closer to You? Why didn't you play Alive?
Right.
Why didn't you play Last Stand? And those are our ballads, and for some reason today, at Active Rock, ballads became uncool. But I remember when I first started, in 2006, 2007, ballads were, people loved ballads. So I like to write ballads, and I like to write heavy rock songs. I got two sides to me. I'm not just a one-dimensional, emotional guy. I have moments where I'm heartbroken, or moments where I'm frustrated and pissed off, or angst, or moments where I'm in love, and I try to write about everything.
What urges you to make music?
My biggest muse my whole career has been my wife, honestly. She's from frustration to love, and some of my biggest songs, are about her. And, she's always been my muse, and life in general, too, just living, the energy of the earth. And, sometimes I'll just be, doing something, walking around my house, or, taking a jog, and the lyrics and melodies for a song that'll make one of our records will come to me. And it comes from an emotion that I think is attacking me on the inside, and I just get it out,
I hear you. We're talking with Rick, lead singer of the band Adelitas Way. Here's a couple questions for you. First of all, what current band in active rock are you really digging right now?
I think when I look at the active rock charts, I think there's a couple songs from Nothing More that I like. I like that they they came out and they did a good job of mixing. You know, it's like a little metal dubstep in parts, but the thing I like is the melodies, man. They got good melodies, so you know, I think even more so than the Royal Bloods out there. You know, I think that Nothing More, they did a good job melodically on songs, and it's very catchy, and I think the lyrics are powerful. So I dig what they're doing, man. You know, and then, you know, whenever we think about bringing bands out, you know, I like Young Guns. I think those guys they got a good sound, and you know, Young Guns, Nothing More. Those are the two bands that I think, you know, right now for me, I think they're going to have a bright future in the format.
Is there a band that maybe we haven't heard of so much that you know about that should be getting some more airplay?
Yeah, man, New Medicine.
Oh, well.
You know what I mean? I think I'm so sad that you know everything happened to that band that's been happening, because I think that they're one of the best bands I've seen in a couple of years, man, and you know, they just haven't had anything go their way. They've had a very rough ride, and you know what else is cool? You know, I know the guys in Starset, and I've known them for a long time, and I'm very happy to see you know, Dustin having the success I think he deserves, and I think that's another band that I'm you know, it's a little part of me is proud of them. You know,
you mentioned New Medicine. They're Minnesota kids.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. I love those guys.
We talked with Jake about 4 or 5 months ago. They're from Orno, which is not too far from where I grew up. So I'm kind of bummed to hear them. I'm kind of bummed to hear that Nixon and Framing Hanley are calling it quits too.
Dude, it's at the end of the day, the people to blame are the guys we're talking about at radio, and just the state of the business, man. It's like when rock radio isn't supporting its bands, and the fan base diminishes, and all these things. You know, it's a snowball effect of things that happen. You know, it's a matter of time until the band decides that it's just not worth it to leave their families. You know,
right.
And even for bands like me, you know, like when I see these bands go out the way they go out, it almost makes me want to go out on a high note instead of letting it get to that point. You know what I mean? When I see the writing on the wall that guys like, you know, the Cumulus guys and all these guys just aren't playing rock records, and the hope is diminishing, it almost makes you want to say, you know what, I'm going to go out while my band is still means something to the industry. You know, I don't want to be that band that people look at as like, you know, desperately washed up, still trying to do whatever. You know, I know we're not even close to that point right now. Right now, we still are filling rooms, and we're still relevant. But I'm not going to let these guys, you know, like the guys we're talking about, have my songs peak out at 37 on the chart, and then I just have become a casualty of being portrayed as a washed-up artist when, you know, the music I'm putting out now is as good as it's ever been.
Right, I hear you. It's kind of like an athlete that wants to go out on top, right?
Of course, it's like when George St. Pierre went out from the UFC, the champion. I was almost proud of him, man. You know, I was like, when do you rarely see that? You know, usually you see Mike Tyson, you know, getting knocked out by you know, fat bums, and you know what I mean. And for me, I want to see the writing on the wall before, and I think that we still could be on the rise, but when it's out of our control, it's out of our control. You know, for me, when something's not in my hands anymore, you know, when I'm giving rock radio songs that are hit songs, where I'm giving them something that should be an additional #1 hit onto my resume, and that song is peaking out at, you know, 35. You know, for me, the writing's on the wall.
Well, it's just like we talked about at the beginning of the interview here. You know, if it's not right anymore, it's time to get out and enjoy your family, just like I'm hearing in the background, right? Oh, exactly. And that, you know, for me, I still love to do what I do. I love to make records. I love to play live. So, you know, I think I'm going to do it until you know, the love for it diminishes as well. I still have that fire to do those things in me, but like I said, I'm not going to let the industry make me look like, you know, like a bum. Right. Hey, we're talking with Rick from the band Adelitas Way. We got to wrap things up here in just a moment. I got a couple more questions for you. Here's a question to make you think a little bit. What artist would you like to cover one of your songs? I mean, do I new or old, or who do I pick? It doesn't matter. Anybody. Oh, man. Wow. You know what, man? I'm going to go and say something that's lame, but I'm going to say it because everyone's always covering their songs, and I think it could be a step
in bringing rock and roll back. I would want to have one of these people that have a fan base, these Taylor Swifts or these One Directions. So for once, it can be the other way around. You see like metal bands covering Taylor Swift just to get YouTube views, and
Yep.
you see, you see all these, like Hailstorm covered, Get Lucky.
Yep. Daft Punk. Yep.
And it would be great for one time in our lives to see one of those artists cover a rock band. You know what I mean? Like you don't see Taylor Swift covering Metallica or like a legend. You don't see One Direction covering a Rolling Stones song, And for me, I would want to pick anything that can help bring luster back to the rock format, because even though they're abandoning me on a massive front, I still got love for everything that I've been able to appreciate in the past, and I would want to bring I'd want to bring the fire back over to our side, and that's how you do it, man. You do it by the most exposure. So I'm going to go with the smart answer, and I'm going to say, I would want it to be, one of those bands that has a massive fan base to get some love back over to rock and roll.
Okay, so how are we going to make that happen, Rick?
It's never going to happen. I will tell you this, for 1 second, there's a band called 5 Seconds of Summer that's blowing up right now, and I had 2 songs that I wrote that they were looking at and considering to do and cover on their record, not cover, but use that I wrote. And that would have been a great opportunity, for me and for, I think, a little bit of rock and roll as well.
Right. What song would you like somebody to cover out of your catalog, your library?
I mean, I would say it would be either Drive or Alive. Okay.
Makes sense.
Or Undivided, one of those 3.
Very cool. Hey, we want to talk about your current song, I Get Around. Let's talk about the song and the meaning of that. What's the meaning behind the current song? What's the story about it?
It's about me, bro. It's about my life. It's about my past. It's about things I've been through. It's about the lyrics of the song are about a bad date that I went on many years back, and I was out with a girl, and one of the first questions she asked me was, "How many people have you been with?" And I thought that was kind of a shocker question to ask someone on a first date, and B, I was kind of like, whoa, holy, I wasn't expecting that. But after it made me realize also that maybe I've been with more people than I liked at that point. And now when I look back, I'm obviously married with a family. You definitely think about that, and you're like, man, I wish I would have maybe valued a couple things a little more. There's a couple things I would take back, But the kicker of the story is after the date, one of my buddies was like, oh, I heard you went out with, and he said her name. And he's like, dude, that girl's... And I was like, what? She asked me how many people I've been with, and she was the one. So it made me realize that I think we all, maybe everyone gets around a little more than they might have liked to, or maybe even gets around a little more than they realize. Gotcha.
We're going to play that here in just a moment, but what does it mean for you to hear your music on the radio?
It's amazing. I still feel like a kid when that happens, and luckily for me, we get a lot of support from Comp 92.3 in Vegas, and we get a lot of support from Octane. So when I'm home, I hear us a lot, and it's very, very, it brings a lot of joy to me, because, like I said, when I first started this, I didn't know the music business. I didn't know what was going on out there. I didn't know everything, and I remember I remember sitting in my car with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I remember listening to the radio station, 92.3, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to have a song on the station one day. This is going to be me. And fast forward a few years, and it came true.
Absolutely. Hey, how can fans out there get to know more about your band, Adelitas Way?
I do a lot of interviews that are very interesting, man. If people go and look up some of the interviews I've done, you guys can see some of the things I've got in trouble for in my like I said, I have 7 people, labels, managers, just screaming at me on the phone because I speak my mind too much. So it's out there, man. We're obviously on all the social medias, the Twitters, you want to read some wild stuff. I'm always tweeting and Facebooking my feelings and things that I think and I think the best way I'd like people to check us out, obviously, is iTunes, because that's where all of our music is, and that's what I want everyone to listen and have an opinion of us first on. But obviously, social media is big these days, so I just want people to check us out on Adelitas Way music.com. all our social media sites, iTunes. If you don't feel like iTunes is how you're doing things, then Spotify or Beats Music, man. YouTube's last place.
And obviously,
last place YouTube.
Yep. And obviously, we want everybody to go out on a concert swing or a tour to check you out. I know you're coming up to Rockfest, Cadott, Wisconsin in July. Any other concert tours coming up, maybe up this way in Minnesota that you know of?
Yep, we're about to announce a big tour. I can't announce it on the phone yet right now, but we're about to announce, I can announce that we're going to do some headlining in July, but we're about to announce ourselves onto a tour we're very excited to do, and we are coming through Minnesota, I believe. So I'm very, very excited about the run that's about to be announced.
Awesome, awesome. We look forward to seeing you up here in Minnesota sometime then soon.
Well, I can't wait. I'm ready.
All righty. Hey, Rick, we're going to play your latest song, I Get Around. Sounds good?
Perfect. I love it.
All right. Thanks so much for joining me once again.
Thank you for supporting rock and roll and doing everything you do.
Once again, that is Rick, the lead singer of the band Adelitas Way. Here's their latest song. It's I Get Around. It's on the Dark and FM 94.